What a shame.
He can't really be... There must be something we can do.
He was a good man. What a rotten way to die.
No, no, no!
I wish there was something more I could say.
I absolutely refuse to subject myself to this madness.
Remasters and remakes. It seems like every other week they announce a new one. It's a staple of the modern gaming landscape. More often than not, on the remaster front, we end up with an inferior version to its original source. They butcher the original art direction with quote-unquote enhanced visuals. They come with performance issues and introduce new bugs. For remakes, they could be all over the place. Some remain as faithful as possible to their source material, others take heavy deviations. Some do justice to the originals, others tarnish their legacy. But what I want to focus on in this video is the availability of their source material. For some remakes, that's easy as pie to buy the original on modern systems. For others, you have to get more creative. Remasters can be a great way to preserve classic games to get them running on modern systems, but companies have to be willing to put in the time, money, and effort to do so. Now, more often than not, I'm not the target audience for remasters and remakes. Fiddling around with emulators, config files, fan patches, fixes from old forums, digging through abandonware sites, that's second nature to me. Depending on when, where, and how you grew up, you may be in the same boat. Looking at the audience demographics for this channel, I'm guessing many of you are. That said, we're still a niche group in the grand scheme of things. For many others, if it's not on Steam, if they can't buy it off console digital storefronts or buy it off a shelf, might as well not exist. Whether they don't know how to or don't care to. They want to fire up a game with minimal hurdles and hassles. As much as that saddens me, that's reality. That's the audience in question for these releases. If it's a remaster, I want them to have the most authentic experience possible. But I also want there to be flexibility. Allow them to toggle graphic changes, quality of life improvements, updated controls. I want these remasters to have the time, budget, and talent required to give their original versions justice, which tends to be the exception and not the norm. If it's for remakes, I want them to have easy access to the source material. If they want to go check out the original, it should be as easy as downloading off Steam, any console storefront, or picking it up off the shelf. If there's an upcoming remake that doesn't have easy access to its original, what better time to help drum up interest than the release for modern systems? Now, in this video, what I'll bring up are but a fraction of what's out there when it comes to remasters and remakes. It's more in the wheelhouse of the games I'm familiar with and my knowledge of their remakes and remasters. So by all means, do drop examples of remasters and remakes, the good, the bad, and the ugly of what I don't cover in the comments. There are many videos on YouTube discussing this very topic of remake and remasters. Me doing this is a bit of my wheelhouse, but I want to jump in and give my 2 cents on it. Been on my mind for some time. What I focus on will be a bit different than some of the other videos. A few recent developments push making this video to the forefront. Starting with remakes. As much as they can frustrate me, as large of a role they've played in creative stagnation in the industry, they're not going to stop. And why would they? They tend to sell well and alleviate the risks taken with large budget productions. But now we're getting into the territory of games with more than one remake. The upcoming Fatal Frame 2 remake being an example. It's already had a remake on the Wii back in 2012. Not long after the release of the Snake Eater remake, Konami put out a survey asking fans what games in the series they want to see remade. No doubt they have more in the pipeline. It wouldn't surprise me if the next remake we see in the series is a Metal Gear Solid 1 remake, which, mind you, did have a remake back in 2004 on the GameCube. Resident Evil has had great success with their recent remakes, most notable being the remake of 2. The series' 30th anniversary is right around the corner. I'm still waiting for the day they announce a second remake of the original, one to an over-the-shoulder perspective. To that point, I don't know whether to laugh or to cry.
Stop it.
On the topic of remasters, as you saw as I began this video, the upcoming Deus Ex remaster, it looks to be an utter desecration of such a legendary title. A game that, depending on what day of the week you ask me, is the greatest game ever made. What saddens me is it's such a fantastic candidate for a remaster. Beyond a janky PS2 port back in 2002, it's never received a console release. For getting it running on modern PC, you do have to jump through some hurdles. There's a few fan patches and fixes to get the best possible experience, which I don't have an issue in doing. It's straightforward, it only takes a few minutes. But there's a sizable potential audience that don't know how to or can't be bothered to. They want something to work right outside of the box. They want something to download off Steam and fire up with no additional work, or to play it on their Switch, their Xbox, or their PlayStation. Fair enough. Looking at the remaster's list of features and enhancements, things seem reasonable. 4K ready, widescreen support, various quality of life enhancements like faster loading, a revamped UI to support controllers, which I'm guessing the game will allow you to switch between that and the classic UI for a mouse and keyboard. At least I hope they are. So if that was all, great. Put a reasonable price point and we're golden. I'm sure there's an audience out there who began the series with the Adam Jensen titles who would have a curiosity to seeing where it all started. But then we get the other, quote-unquote, enhancements. The visual ones. Ones that lay waste to the art direction, the lighting. Look at those character models. It's Temu Deus Ex. It's like they asked ChatGPT to update the models and that's what they went with. And look at those system requirements for remaster of a game from 2000. Some of these requirements are higher than Deus Ex Mankind Divided from 2016. Something tells me this remaster is going to introduce a whole slew of new bugs and performance issues. It fills me with great sadness and anger that this is going to be the way some people experience Deus Ex for the first time. What a shame. But there are approaches they could have taken to reduce this shame, like being able to change the graphics back to its classic look, which is something that other remasters offer, ones that allow the player to switch between the classic and remastered look. Some done in the options, others allow you to do so in real time. Some examples include the recent remastered Tomb Raider titles, remasters of Soul Reaver 1 and 2, the remasters of StarCraft, Diablo 2, and Warcraft 3, the Command & Conquer Remastered Collection, the Halo 1 Anniversary Edition. The Master Chief Collection allows you to switch between classic and updated for Halo 1 and 2. Now, I must note the varying levels of quality with these examples. The Anniversary Edition of Halo and the initial release of the Master Chief Collection use the bungled 2003 Gearbox port as its base. We could go down a rabbit hole of the Master Chief's Collection's many issues that took years to fix up, but I digress. And the remastered of Warcraft 3? Boy, did they open a whole can of worms there, but hold that thought for now. What a shame that the Deus Ex Remaster does not offer this choice of the classic look. I've seen those smoking the copium suggest that it will be in the game, but they haven't announced it yet. Watch the trailer again. You'll be able to do that as the player. If that were the case, why didn't they mention it in the trailer? Or mention it in the list of features? If that were the case, they'd be scrambling to communicate that fact after the reception of its trailer. I've seen it suggested that the implementation of ragdoll physics is one key reason for not being able to switch between looks. That was the key reason? What a terrible choice as a trade-off. So being able to switch between modern and classic is something that all remasters should shoot for. Both visuals, but also when it comes to controls in some cases. But they also have to consider how to handle the original versions. If gone awry, it's an easy way to kill off any semblance of goodwill. It's a great way to do a number on the studio's reputation. It's common to delist the original after remaster's release, but in ideal cases, the original doesn't disappear. If you already own the original, you still have it. If you buy the remaster, you get the original version bundled. The System Shock 2 remaster did this. Some remasters offer a discounted price if you own the original. Others may offer it for free, like the BioShock 1 and 2 remasters for PC. When it comes to multiplayer titles, things can get a bit more dicey in the handling of the original version. Which brings us back to the 2020 remaster of Warcraft 3. You want to play online? You have to use this version and not the original, which at launch lacked many core features. There's a whole slew of performance issues and bugs. A EULA rewrite to give Blizzard ownership of custom maps. Promise editions mentioned before release never made it in, or came in years later. Anything that could go wrong, did go wrong here. It's a far cry from the Blizzard that would cancel games far into development because it didn't meet their standards. A perfect example of how a change in leadership and ownership can kill what was once a great game studio. For a time, the Warcraft 3 remaster had the lowest user score on Metacritic. But this kind of disaster happens for other remasters without multiplayer. One of the best examples being the quote-unquote definitive edition of the Grand Theft Auto trilogy of 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. It butchered the art style, the lighting, the atmosphere. It was bug-ridden at launch with a myriad of performance issues. Now, they did add in classic lighting mode about 3 years after the remaster's launch. Beyond that, there's no option of changing to the classic look. Did they bundle the original versions with the definitive edition? No. Can you buy the original trilogy anymore? No. Well, with one exception. You can buy it on Rockstar Store for PC and use their game launcher, but it's no longer available on Steam for purchase. which again, if it's not on Steam or a console digital storefront, it might as well not exist. The Definitive Edition is one of the more egregious examples of a bungled remaster, one that's a slap in the face to the original's legacy and to customers. Let's look at one more lackluster remaster, but one that didn't cancel its original version, that being Dead Rising. It got a deluxe remaster in 2024. Boy, whenever these remasters add in words like definitive or deluxe, buyer beware. This remaster changed engines from the MT framework of the original to the RE engine, one that saw many elements lost in that translation, from the art direction to smaller details. There's also a change in voice acting, along with censorship and cut dialogue for everyone's favorite reason, modern sensibilities. But you could still buy the original version. Well, to be clear, you could buy the 2016 remaster of Dead Rising, the one that made minimal changes to the original. It bumped up the resolution, the frame rate, some minor quality of life improvements. Being able to buy this version still makes a world of difference. As we'll see later, Capcom can do a decent job with this, to an extent. When it comes to remasters, many point to Nightdive Studios as the example to follow, for what games they remaster and how they remaster them. They did the System Shock 2 remaster I brought up earlier. I saw many comments for the Deus Ex remaster that Nightdive should have handled it, that they would have done the game justice. To an extent, I can agree with this sentiment. Some of the remasters set a bar that others should strive for, including themselves. They don't have a spotless track record by any stretch. Like the 2019 remaster of Blood, Fresh Supply, a remaster that had several technical hiccups, performance issues, and deviations from the original. They're releasing another remaster, Refresh Supply, in December of this year, one using the original source code instead of reverse engineering like they did for the original remaster. If you own that one, you get a 66% discount instead of a free update. That does feel quite dickish. And again, they're dealing with Warner Brothers on this one, so I'm sure that plays a factor. Their 2022 remaster of the point-and-click Blade Runner game was a mess, a myriad of technical issues on launch. But they did package it with the original version. But then you have remasters like Shadow Man. This is a bar of quality that all remasters should strive for. While you can't switch between the classic and modern look in-game, there's plenty of flexibility in its settings. It's got all the quality of life enhancements you'd expect from a quality remaster. But the Shadow Man remaster goes the distance that few other remasters do, like restoring levels cut from the original game. They brought in the game's composer to remaster and improve the quality of the game's audio. He even composed new tracks for the restored levels cut from the original. The end result is a remaster with a bar of quality that all should strive for. And others can take cues from Nightdive in what they choose to remaster. Nightdive has remastered a variety of first-person and third-person shooters and point-and-click titles from the 90s and early 2000s. Remastered to work out of the box on modern PCs and consoles. Before the remaster, if you want to play Shadow Man on a console, your choices were PlayStation 1, the N64, or Dreamcast. Now you can play it on all current systems. It's a game well worth preserving and bringing to a larger audience. Nightdive mentioned in an interview earlier this year of wanting to remaster titles from the 360 and PS3 era, which is a great choice. You have many a game that remain in limbo on those consoles. That time frame was a bit of a dark age for PC releases. Games that should have received PC ports didn't. If they did, most were an afterthought and half-assed. Consoles became the main focus. But during the course of the 7th generation, Steam saw a meteoric rise. So you get into odd situations like The Darkness did, a game that's a perfect candidate for a remaster. One, it's a fantastic game, but it's a 2007 release that's stuck on the PS3 and 360. Its sequel in 2012 did get a PC version. In that time span, Steam helped turn things around for PC releases. Another great candidate for remaster would be the Condemned series. As of writing, there might be something at play here. They delisted the first Condemned in October of this year, which may point to a remaster. It had a PC and 360 release, so have it pop up for other consoles make it a good candidate. Fantastic game, well worth checking out. But its sequel, Bloodshot, it's as good a candidate for a remaster. Unlike the original, it had no PC release, only a 360 and PS3 release. From that dark age of PC ports where they didn't happen or received half-baked versions. Well, not as good as the original, still a great game that should get its due in a wider release. In recent times, we've gotten remasters of games that were in similar boats. One stuck on the 360, the PS3, or the Wii, like Shadow of the Damned, which got a remaster across all major platforms in 2024. Same case for Lollipop Chainsaw. That said, the Lollipop Chainsaw remaster suffers a loss that other games may not. The remaster suffers from licensing issues. The original made heavy use of licensed music. Great usage as well, but due to license expirations and high costs, they had to replace most of these tracks. I'd be curious to hear below what games stuck on the PS3, 360, or Wii that you would like to see a remaster of. There's a treasure trove to sort through. And don't get me started if we go back even further to the PS2, Xbox, or GameCube era, or the PS1 era. We could be here all day. For myself, look at any game I've covered on the channel from this era without modern releases. Those are ideal candidates for a remaster. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up Bloodborne. A remaster announcement has been a running joke for years now. The 10th anniversary came and went without a peep. If there was a time for it, that was it. Then again, it took over 13 years for Red Dead Redemption to get a remaster, so stranger things have happened. It's always been a shroud of mystery as to why. IP rights issues between FromSoft and Sony, FromSoft not being able to devote time and staff to it, closing of Japan's studio who collaborated on Bloodborne, could be many reasons. Last thing I want to see is the game getting a Blue Point treatment like Demon's Souls. Give me a remaster with a consistent higher frame rate, allow me to tweak some settings, and we're good. Which you can now do with emulation, it's gotten to that point. But again, I want a wide release where players don't need to jump through hoops to get things running. You never know with Bloodborne and its future. But I can guarantee you one thing. We will get another Last of Us remaster between now and then. Because of course, that's what the world needs more of. More versions of The Last of Us. Earlier in the video, I brought up that Fatal Frame 2 is getting a remake in 2026. The series serves as a good candidate for remasters, which have happened in recent years, that being the 4th and 5th entries in the series. Most notable for Mask of the Lunar Eclipse, the 4th entry. It was a Japanese-only release for the Wii back in 2008. The 5th entry, Maiden of the Blackwater, was a Wii U exclusive for years, but through remasters, both games are available across all modern consoles and PC. I wish I could say the same for the first 3 titles in the series. They never got PC versions. They did get re-releases on the PlayStation Store, but that's only an option for the PS3. Else you have to emulate or find the games on a PS2 and Xbox for which ones are available. Now would be the perfect time to get them running and working for modern systems with the remake of 2 around the corner. With that, let's bring remakes into the fold for this discussion. Remakes aren't going to stop anytime soon. As weary as I am of them, I do understand why they keep making them. They alleviate much risk from large budget productions. They see the success that Resident Evil has had with their recent remakes, especially the remake of 2. The series full of high-selling titles, the remake of 2 sits at the very top. That being the case, developers and publishers need to do a much better job of preserving the original versions. Make it easy as pie for customers to buy both versions, which happens far less than what I consider acceptable. Let's look at 2 recent remakes with stark contrasts in the availability of their originals, from 2 series near and dear to my heart, that being the Resident Evil 4 remake and the Silent Hill 2 remake. Now, people love to joke about the number of re-releases that Skyrim has, but the original Resident Evil 4 has it beat. It's more a case of what system can't you buy it on since its release. No issues there. Wish I could say the same for Silent Hill 2. Want to buy the original version? Can't buy it on Steam or any console storefronts, can't get it off the shelf. You'll have to emulate or find an old copy for the PS2 or Xbox. Or get a PC version off an abandonware site or the Internet Archive and install the fan-created enhanced edition to get it cooperating with modern systems. Something that is very easy to set up and install, but bringing the point up again, many can't be bothered to jump through these hurdles. Now, Silent Hill 2, along with the 3rd game, did get a remaster back in 2012. The infamous Silent Hill HD collection for the PS3 and 360. The less said about it, the better.
Someone at fucking Hijinks Studios thought it was necessary to change the fucking font to Comic Sans in the HD version. Yeah, cause
In a recent tweet, series producer Motoi Okamoto said the reason for announcing all the upcoming Silent Hill titles back in 2022 was to show they were serious in reviving the franchise. But one area that they've neglected in reviving the series is how they treat its back catalog. Beyond the recent releases, it's a pitiful offering. Of the 4 Team Silent titles, the only one you could buy is Silent Hill 4, and that's only for PC, and only on GOG, which I'll be talking about later. You can get Silent Hill Homecoming for PC, but it's a half-baked port that found me using fan patches to even get it running. While I understand the Metal Gear Solid Master Collection has its issues, at least Konami gave you the option of playing most of the older titles on modern systems. Players have the choice between playing the original Snake Eater and its remake. It's a shame they haven't given the same treatment to Silent Hill. It's one of the reasons I've been nowhere near as enthusiastic of the series' return compared to others. Bringing up Resident Evil again, it's a night and day difference with how Capcom treats the series' back catalog. With the exception of Code Veronica, you can more or less buy every mainline title on modern systems. I wish they did a better job for the original trilogy, but we'll come back to that later. I want to reiterate that if you're going to remake a game, ensure that the originals are still playable. It's the perfect time to get a version up and running for modern systems. Customers should have easy access to the original. For a few more examples of recent remakes, ones with varying offerings of their original, for Final Fantasy VII, you could get the original version across all major platforms, which do have their quirks and downgrades from the original, but you still have easy access to it. For Dead Space, a bit of a mixed bag. You can get the 2008 edition for Xbox and PC. For PlayStation, it's still stuck on the PS3. The PC version has some quirks and bugs that require fan patches to get the best possible experience. What about Demon's Souls? It's a Sony IP. They've increased the number of PC versions over the years, but the original version is still stuck on the PS3. I wish more publishers and developers gave more care to this when it comes to handling remakes, but there's an even rarer case, where remakes will include their original version. This is a once-in-a-blue-moon occurrence. I looked high and low and came up with a tiny list, one being Metroid Zero Mission from 2004, a remake of the 1986 Metroid. Beat Metroid Mission and you unlock the original. The 2019 remake of Medieval includes its 1998 original that you can unlock. The 2013 remake of Flashback includes its 1992 original. There must be more out there, but it's a minuscule list. Adding remasters back into the fold, let's look at some of the barriers that can get in the way of preserving the originals for modern systems. Starting with leadership at companies. In a 2017 interview, former CEO and chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment, Jim Ryan, got in hot water over comments about older titles. He was at an event with titles from the PS1 up until the PS4. He said those PS1 and PS2 titles looked ancient. Why would anyone want to play them? In the same interview, he mentioned they dialed back on backwards compatibility as it was a feature much requested but had little usage. In a follow-up interview, he states what he meant to say was, look at how well the PS4 version looked and how the series evolved. It wasn't a slight to the older titles. Classic PR talk. This former CEO and chairman of Sony Interactive Entertainment, ladies and gentlemen. Someone who at one time had an immense sway in the direction of these kind of things. In 2024, GOG brought the original Resident Evil trilogy to its platform. The reception and sales far exceeded expectations. But it wasn't smooth sailing in getting the games up on GOG. In an interview, those working at GOG said Capcom didn't see the value bringing back the originals. Capcom said, well, we have all those remakes. It's already the superior experience to these games. Now, this statement doesn't represent Capcom as a whole, but if you're in discussions about releasing games on your platform, you're talking to decision makers, those with much influence and sway. So to have those involved from Capcom's end be so hesitant to put the original versions up, it's a troubling sign and a great disappointment. And this statement about the remakes being the superior experiences, I like to meet those who felt that way while dealing with GOG. Sit them down, get them to play the original RE3, then play the remake. Look me straight in the eye and tell me that the remake is superior. No way. I use RE3 in particular due to how much of a downgrade it was compared to its original source. To note, Capcom has re-released the original RE2 and 3 around the same time frame on PlayStation Store. The original has been on there for a few years. I have to wonder how much the push from GOG and its sales influenced this decision. And bless GOG for their role in preserving games. When dealing with older PC games, I try to buy them there as opposed to Steam. They're DRM free, they put in more of an effort to get things running on modern systems. There tend to be far less hurdles running older games bought on GOG compared to Steam. And they're continuing their strong push for getting older games re-released through their dream list. Users can vote on what games they'd like to see added to GOG. It helps demonstrate community interest to IP owners. And would you look at that, Konami? You have Silent Hill sitting at number 3 for most votes, Silent Hill 2 at number 4, and Silent Hill 3 at number 18. As mentioned earlier, Resident Evil Code Veronica is the only mainline RE title that's not available for modern systems. It's sitting at number 14 on that list. Now, as much as I enjoy GOG, we do have to consider that's a fraction of the size of the market share of Steam. Once again, for many, if you can't buy it on Steam, it might as well not exist. And for good reasons. By no means a perfect platform. I wish they would take more cues from GOG when it comes to handling older games and a greater push for preservation. But it has a mammoth share of the market for a good reason. GOG could work as a starting point for some of these older titles. It could get the ball rolling on getting versions to other platforms and systems. Bringing up the original Resident Evil trilogy once again, with how well they've done according to GOG, you think Capcom would take the steps of getting them on Steam. With the 30th anniversary around the corner, what better time than now? But again, with what some of the higher-ups said earlier about the remakes being the superior experience, it may be a hurdle in the way. There are other hurdles that you have to consider, like IP ownership rights. Staff from GOG talked about in the same article on bringing the original Resident Evil trilogy to their platform. They said they could write a book on some of the stories they've had in obtaining IPs, like hiring a PI to find someone who owned the rights to several games who lived off the grid. He didn't even know he owned the rights to these games. It was part of an inheritance package. A great example of IP ownership being a major roadblock is the No One Lives Forever series. Nightdive Studios have wanted to remaster the series for some time, but it's a game caught up in IP purgatory thanks to mergers and acquisitions. Fox Interactive was part of Vivendi, which merged with Activision. Fox Interactive did split off, and now Fox is under Disney. Activision is now under the Microsoft umbrella. The game's developer, Monolith, rest in peace, was owned by Warner Brothers. Good luck sorting that mess out. You also have to consider the possibility of lost source code. The infamous Silent Hill HD collection used incomplete source code for Silent Hill 2 and 3. Konami lost the finished source code. In a 2019 interview, President and CEO of Square Enix, Yosuke Matsuda, mentioned that much of the source code of older titles was gone. Katsutoyo Mahiro, director of the Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, the Ivalice Chronicles, mentioned they turned to fan sites and archives to help piece things together. Like many Square titles, the source code of the original was gone. Through fan archivists and game preservationists, they were able to piece things together and rebuild the game from scratch. For as we know, fans do a far better job of preserving and archiving games. Which does lead to my next point. Getting fans, communities, and modders into the fold can do wonders when it comes to remasters. For the Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver 1 and 2 remaster, they hired a prominent modder of the series to direct the remaster. For the Tomb Raider remasters, they hired the creator of OpenLara, an open source engine of the classic Tomb Raider titles, as the lead developer for the remaster. For the Command & Conquer Remastered collection, they received feedback from the community, including modders, during development. They even released the code of the game as open source. I know, EA, of all companies? No doubt this must have flown under the radar there compared to other projects. While not a remaster, in 2015 Aspyr worked with the creators of the Sith Lord's restored content modification for Coder 2, to integrate it with the latest version and onto the Steam Workshop store, which to note, was going to be a free DLC for the Nintendo Switch version in 2022, but was cancelled. I wish Konami would do the same with Silent Hill 2. The work is already there with modders through the Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition, fan-made project for the PC. A project that gets the game running on modern systems with great levels of flexibility in its visual effects. I discussed it in length in my review on the Silent Hill 2 remake, but Konami should collaborate with them for making an official release across all major platforms. From its appearance, it looks like the Deus Ex Remaster got zero kind of feedback from fans, community, or modders. On the notes of fans and communities, is there a large enough market for these remasters? On the remake front, in many cases there is. Look at the sales numbers for the recent Resident Evil remakes, especially Resident Evil 2 with over 16 million sales. Konami has been happy with the sales of the Silent Hill 2 remake. Wouldn't surprise me if they had more Metal Gear remakes in the works. But what about original versions? What if they received updated releases that you could play on any modern console or PC? Would there be an audience for those kind of games? It depends, but probably. Of course, this does depend on several factors. Picking on Silent Hill once again, as brought up earlier on the GOG Dream List, the first 3 games are right near the top of the list with the most votes. Some ROM sites will show the number of downloads for games. On one ROM site, Silent Hill is the most downloaded PS1 game with over 250,000 downloads. More than Final Fantasy VII, more than Metal Gear Solid, and that's just one ROM site. Who knows what those numbers are like when you combine it with other sites. And emulation is a niche audience of the market. That said, I've seen niche titles with well over 100,000 downloads on various sites. Over a decade ago, Gabe Newell said piracy was almost always a service problem. You could see the result of that statement through the growth of Steam into the juggernaut of what it is today. If they did a good job with a remaster, I'm sure many ROM downloaders would be happy to buy a copy that works across modern systems. And that can be a great way of testing the waters of continuing or rebooting a series. While there's been little shown of it, and it's had a couple of delays, I assume it's still coming, there is a new Shadow Man game in the works. It wouldn't surprise me that the reception of the Shadow Man remaster played a role in its greenlight. Of course, that's if the remaster is of quality. Many Deus Ex fans, myself included, would love another game. Adam Jensen's story still needs an ending. A remaster of an older title would be a good way to gauge interest. That is, if you put the time, money, and care into it. Unless they delay it and start the remaster over, I don't see any scenario where it helps bring another series entry into fruition. I do want to get a bit more cynical for a bit here, bringing up that statement again from Capcom. about the Resident Evil remakes being the superior experiences to the original. Do you know what is superior with the remakes? The money Capcom can earn with them. Companies want your money, and lots of it. It's far easier to get more of with modern releases. Games from back then? You bought it once, you're done. Now we have microtransactions, live services, and countless predatory monetary practices. There's a lot of goodwill companies can earn with the preservation of their back catalog, but so many do such a poor job with it if they do anything at all. In many cases, they make things worse, like Blizzard did with the Warcraft 3 Remaster. Fans will always do a better job in game preservation, whether through emulation, fan patches, mods. Things are going to get even more interesting in the near future with the rise of decompilations and recompilations. These will always be superior to what companies can put out. But, once again, that's still a niche audience of the gaming landscape. Most can't be bothered or don't know how to or don't care to. If it's not on Steam, a console storefront, or a store shelf, might as well not exist. Again, it sucks, but that's reality, especially for the younger audience out there. Ones raised on platforms and ecosystems that have turned into anti-consumer monstrosities. It's all they know and were raised on. Now, I'm not saying all the youngins are like this. With how user-unfriendly some tech has become, I do hope the younger ones are seeking out other means of how things used to be. That said, I want them to have the option to go back and play classic games from yesteryear. A quality version that runs on modern systems with no hurdles to jump through to get working. There's a perception of younger audiences don't care about older games. Look at those ugly graphics. Why would anyone want to play them? They have 1,000,001 other modern games that they could play instead. And sure, that may be the case for many. But when there's few options of playing older titles on modern systems without jumping through hurdles, you're not giving them much of a chance. Let them have that option. Maybe they have a parent, an older sibling, a family relative, an older friend, or an older coworker extolling the virtues of older games. I like to think when trying out these older games, they'd have an epiphany. Yes, these graphics aren't as shiny or as pretty, but there's something here that modern games lack. There's much more love, care, and soul put into them. Those older than me extolling the virtues of older games? Maybe it's not only nostalgia talking here. Maybe they do have a point of games being better back in the day. Of course, that's if they have a quality remaster available to them, not a half-baked one. Let's use a few examples to illustrate this point. Let's say you have a younger cousin named Roman. Roman has spent many an hour with Grand Theft Auto 5. This was his entry point into the series. He hasn't played the older titles. He can't wait for Grand Theft Auto 6. Disappointed by the delay, Roman decides to give the older games a shot. He's heard much about them, especially San Andreas. What choices does Roman have? As brought up earlier, the only choice for modern systems is the Definitive Edition. Well, save for buying the classic trilogy off of Rockstar's store. But Roman, he only uses Steam. If you were a fan of the series, would you want this to be his first experience with Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, San Andreas? I sure wouldn't. If you were a good cousin, I'd hope you show or teach Roman how to get the original trilogy up and running after jumping through a few hurdles. Another example, this time with a remake. You have a younger cousin named Oscar. Oscar got into Souls-like later on, Elden Ring being his first experience. He loved it and starts making his way back through FromSoft's output. He then reaches Demon's Souls. Oscar doesn't have a PS3 and doesn't know how to use emulators, but he does have a PS5, so he buys the Blue Point remake. From a fidelity and technical perspective, is impressive. The original was very rough around the edges, but much of that polish, the heart and soul of the original game disappears. The remake lays waste to the art direction and atmosphere. The soundtrack loses the unique charm and flair of the original. We're getting a whole group of players now who only experience a game through their remakes. Oscar is none the wiser as a result. The Silent Hill 2 remake being another example, in large part due to the lack of the original's availability on modern systems. The list goes on and on. Bringing up Deus Ex once again. Depending on what day of the week you ask me, favorite game ever. But this upcoming remaster? For some poor soul, this is going to be their first experience with the game. What a shame. How would you feel if your favorite game got a remaster treatment like this? Or the Warcraft 3 remaster? Or the Grand Theft Auto trilogy? For all you know, a half-baked remaster is coming its way. Or just as bad, a remake that loses the spirit of the original. These aren't going to stop. Remasters and remakes, they're here to stay. I'm sure with the success of the Oblivion remaster Shadow Drop, we're going to get more of these on little notice. It wouldn't surprise me if one dropped during the Game Awards or any of these upcoming major gaming shows. Now, on the note of the Oblivion remaster, I have to wonder how much of the Shadow Drop played a role in its reception. If there was a few months period between announcement and release, there wouldn't quite be that novelty. I'd like to think many would be much more critical on the butt-ugly new look and butchering of the original's art direction. Something oh so common in modern remasters. As mentioned at the beginning of the video, more often than not, I'm not the target audience for most remakes and remasters. I'm fine with playing the original. I'm good to fiddle around with config files, fan patches, emulators, scouring abandonware sites. But I realize that I'm part of a niche audience of the gaming landscape. Many want to download the game off of Steam or a console storefront and play. No other hurdles. That's where remasters can be great for older titles. But so many do the original an injustice, from their attempts to modernize its looks to other changes made. Like many modern games, they now come with a slew of performance issues and bugs not in the original. There's also a bit of a fine line when it comes to remasters and how much you change. For me, I err for a remaster to make minimal changes. No change to the look beyond bumping up the resolution, widescreen support, some minor quality of life improvements. Put it at a decent price point, and we're all good. But for someone else, that might not be enough. They want to see more. Things like enhanced graphics and a newer engine. Updated mechanics for something more modern. You know why I don't want more? Because it opens the door much wider for them to screw it up. Time and time again, that's been the case. To summarize all of this, when it comes to remasters, if you want to offer enhanced graphics to something more modern, you can. But include the original look as well, whether you could switch that on the fly or in options. Give the player flexible choices. From control schemes, UI changes, widescreen support, visual effects. Bring in or communicate with the communities with those that know the game well. You might even bring modders into the fold like some remasters have. Don't make the original version vanish into thin air. Bundle it for those who buy the newer remaster. Offer a discounted rate for those who own the original, or go the extra distance and make it free for them. If you're going to remaster games, pick ones worth remastering. Pick ones tucked away or stuck in limbo on older consoles. Don't go the way of Sony and remaster a game that came out 4 years ago. Making new games are mammoth undertakings requiring much money, time, and staff. Remasters can be a great way to test the waters of bringing back old IPs. Something that doesn't take as many resources. That said, don't cheap out on them and send it off to the lowest bidder. You have to put effort into them. They could do wonders for generating goodwill with audiences. They could also diminish your reputation if you don't handle them well. While my thoughts on EA are still in the toilet, which I'm sure is the case for most of you, I do think higher of them with how they handled the Command & Conquer remaster. But then you have cases like Blizzard with the Warcraft 3 remaster, which did a number on Blizzard's reputation, which has already been spiraling for some time. And while there's no doubt Grand Theft Auto 6 is going to make a gazillion dollars, I'm sure many of us think lesser of them after the Definitive Edition debacle. Reputation and goodwill is harder to put a concrete price tag on, but it can come back to bite you down the line. For remasters, if you still plan on pumping them out, make the original easy to access. It's the perfect time to make them playable for modern systems. You'll have a part of the audience curious to check out the original for the first time. You'll also have those who may have long parted from their own copies willing to buy it again. While I've touched upon it throughout the video, these remasters can work as a means of preserving old games, something that most companies do the bare minimum for. It's up to other companies who specialize in doing so to carry that weight, or the fans who put in the work to preserve, mod, and keep older games alive. The companies need to start pulling their own weight when it comes to preserving their legacies, which, looking at the direction the industry is going, doesn't look promising, but there's always a choice. Not all remasters are going to put out numbers like the Oblivion remaster did, but you might find yourself surprised with what customers buy. But you have to give them that option, and you have to make it a good option. Thanks for watching. As mentioned earlier, I only covered a fraction of remasters and remakes. There's far more out there I didn't cover, so by all means do drop examples of remasters and remakes, the good, the bad, and the ugly, but I didn't cover below. Special shout out to the Boulder Punchers who give extra support to the channel on Patreon or YouTube memberships. For those in the Complete Global Saturation tier, American Boot, Flan Nagel. For those in the Thank You for Your Patronage tier, Tom Terrible. For those in the Now This is Boulder Punching tier, Ethan, the Madman in Waco, James Warner, Cray, Nate2, the original Narcisse Diet Thick Dew TM Neo Edition. For those in the Jill Sandwich tier, On Hell, Benji, Benny Winterdawn, BBFM Bloxburg, Darkrod99, Dragonfang Studios, Extraordinary 2, James Kilgore, Leonard Aronson, Logan Lepin, Mad Morpheus Gaming, Michael Walters, Nico Pero, Sam Jones, Squid Vicious, Strababinya, Will Han, and Zin. If you're interested in supporting the channel further through Patreon or YouTube memberships, check the pinned comment or description. You can also do one-time donations through Super Thanks or Ko-fi. Thanks again, I'll see you in the next video, which may or may not be on a remake I mentioned here.
Oh my God, what's wrong with your face?